Warm greetings from the Chennai Center for China Studies and National Maritime Foundation. This is a unique event in commemorating World Hydrography Day and showing a mark of respect for our officers in white who contribute to hydrography in India, but very little is known about this domain. Celebrated globally on 21st of June, World Hydrography Day is designed to raise awareness about hydrography and how it plays a role in improved knowledge of the seas and oceans. According to International Hydrographic Organization, 2022 is celebrated with the theme Hydrography Contributing to the United Nations Ocean Decade. Hydrography, in addition to supporting safe and efficient navigation of ships, hydrography underpins almost every other activity associated with the sea, including resource exploitation like fishing and minerals, environmental protection and management, maritime boundary delimitation, national marine spatial data infrastructures, and maritime defense and security. Today, hydrography is a field with lots of potential in today's world. It can also be used as a strategic instrument. Today, it is also a tribute to the hydrographers of the Indian Navy who gather and manage India's maritime data and promote greater navigational safety in the Indian Ocean region through common standards and procedures. It is now an honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished speakers for today. First, I begin with our keynote speaker, Vice Admiral Adir Arora NM. He took over as Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India on 1st October 2021. The flag officer has had an illustrious career spanning over 3 decades with nearly 2 decades on board various ships. Commissioned in the executive branch of the Indian Navy in 1985, he specialized in hydrography and has undertaken hydrographic surveys in and across India and Indian Ocean region. He also has a rare distinction of undertaking foreign cooperation surveys in Mauritius between 2010 and 2012, Seychelles and Kenya, while in command of INS Sarvikshak. These include highly sensitive marine ecological areas, continental shelf, and pioneer surveys. He was also the co-chair for the third Indo-Mauritius Hydrographic Cooperation meeting in 2008. In ashore capacity, he was being responsible for maritime boundaries aspects, including representing India in the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague, Netherlands, during the arbitration with Bangladesh. He also steered the ship during project of new construction ships with the state-of-art systems. He is a graduate of the National Defense Academy and alumni of the Defense Services Staff College. He has authored various papers and has been taking keen interest in evolving scenario on maritime boundary issues, which will become a significant topic, especially with the ruling of Permanent Court of Arbitration in South China Sea. Our second speaker who will be delivering the special address will be Rear Admiral K. Nair, NM. He was commissioned into the Indian Navy in Jan 1980 after graduating from the National Defense Academy. He is a hydrographic specialist with over 34 years of service in the Indian Navy. He has held varying appointments both at sea and ashore. He has commanded a Coast Guard patrol craft and 4 hydrographic surveying ships of the Indian Navy. He carried out the duties of Director Survey Operations at the National Hydrographic Office, headed the premier hydrographic training institute of the country, and was the Principal Director of Hydrography at the Integrated Headquarters of MOD Navy, and later, after elevation to the flag rank, was a Joint Chief Hydrographer at the National Hydrographic Office, Dehradun. He was awarded the Nauseda Medal for devotion to duty during his innings at sea. His fields of activity cover hydrographic and oceanographic surveys, nautical charting, maritime boundary issues, law of the sea, ship management, coastal zone management, hydrographic cooperation, and technology related to ocean science and human resource management, with particular emphasis to training and development in the hydrographic field. As a specialist hydrographer, this domain knowledge also encompasses sediment transportation, dredging, and related environmental issues, including port development and remote sensing. He was a member of the International Hydrographic Organization, FIG-ICA, International Board for Standards of Competence for Hydrographic Surveyors and Nautical Cartographers, representing IHO from 2008 to 2013. He superannuated on 30th September 2015 With this introduction, I now call upon Commodore R.S. Vasan, Indian Navy retired and Director General, Chennai Center for China Studies, to deliver the opening address. Over to you, Commodore.
Thank you, Bala. First of all, a very good morning to all the distinguished speakers here, as well as some of the familiar faces from the Navy that I see. A great honor for me to wish every hydrographer the happy World Hydrographers Day. In fact, the idea came from Bala, one of our senior research officers. He says, the world is celebrating the Hydrography Day. Why don't we do something in the Chennai Center for China Studies? The focus of Chennai Center for China Studies has been not just China, but we are looking at the maritime dimensions through the Indo-Pacific and in the Indian Ocean region. And luckily for us, since I wear both the hats, one that of the Director General Chennai Center for China Studies, and the other one as Regional Director, National Maritime Foundation, Tamil Nadu. No, there is overlap of our interests as far as the C3S and the NMF are concerned. So immediately we jumped at the idea of celebrating this. I don't think any other think tank has done this today. That's in my assessment. And so therefore, it's an honor for us to have dignitaries here, that the Chief Hydro himself, Admiral Adir, and also my old associate, Admiral Nair, who I used to interact when I was Chief Staff Officer Operations at Southern Naval Command, and then he was commanding a ship there. So, Bala has already actually taken the wind out of my sails. So whatever I had to say is already said. But the point is of importance here is that the Indian Hydrographic Department and the Indian Hydro Office have done so much since their existence. Very recently, you all would have read that on June, they decommissioned a vessel after 40 years of its existence. And, this is the kind of service that was rendered. Not only were they carrying out survey in our waters, but they also helped out our neighboring countries. This complements our security and growth for all in the region. Unless you have proper survey of the oceans that you own because of the exclusive economic zone, which gives you, millions of square kilometers, you will not be able to know what is it that you want to find out. So in the exclusive economic zone of India, which is 2 million square kilometers, there is a phenomenal amount of assets that we have. But only when you carry out deep survey of ports, harbors, fishing areas, the areas which are full of oil, gas, and other energy assets, will you be in a position to harness the oceans. We're not talking about exploiting the oceans. We're talking about harnessing the oceans, and that is where a strong survey team is of great importance to any nation. So from that point of view, we are really lucky that this has been nurtured through the decades of its existence, and it's come a long way, and today it is recognized globally as one of the most competent professional arm of the Indian Navy. So I have personally, of course, visited Dehradun, where they had their office earlier, and of course I think the top brass now is operating in Delhi. So I would only take another couple of minutes because I know Admiral would be very busy and it is his day today. So I would not like to trample on his area. So I just want to say that, Bala did mention to the issues related to in the South China Sea. All of us are aware that in 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration, awarded, in fact, it passed strictures against China for violation of various clauses of UNCLOS in the South China Sea. Most of it was related to the claims that they made to say that the 9-dash line is entirely theirs, which is not the fact. And also some of the rocks and reefs which are there, they wanted to convert them into islands and claim something like 200 nautical miles around them. So, all these were violative, and which is where there is a deep interest in the survey aspects of what is happening in South China Sea. Likewise, in Indian Ocean region, which I am sure the Chief Hydro will mention, is about the way we went about resolving our disputes with Bangladesh. When the delimitation took place, we had overlapping exclusive economic zone with Bangladesh. And it is to the credit of the large neighbor here, that's India, the big brother, who said whatever awards are given, we'll accept it. And which is how we resolved the issues with Bangladesh on the exclusive economic zone after the delimitation which took place many years ago. So what it tells us is that not only are we a responsible nation, we also honor international rule-based order, a term that's being increasingly used in the Indo-Pacific. Another important point I'd like to tell you is particularly after tsunami, all our ships were out, including the survey ships. And the Galle harbor was totally inundated. There were a lot of debris. They did not know whether any ships could safely navigate inside this harbor. It is again to the credit of the Indian Navy, who deployed their assets, and the survey vessels equipped with side scan sonars and with other modern devices were able to clear the entire passage to Galle within a matter of 24 hours. Matter of great credit to us. So when we talk about Navy being a service that carries out, forward posturing and presence, so the survey vessels have done likewise by demonstrating their potential globally, and therefore we are a great service. So it is my honor, Admiral Arora, as well as Admiral Nair and others who are here, to extend our warm greetings on this great day of significance to the Indian Navy and the nation, because we acknowledge the kind of service that has been rendered to this nation of ours, and the way you have enhanced our profile in terms of our professional capability and competence. Thank you so much. And sorry, I've taken a little longer than what I intended to, but I thought this was the day where I could take certain liberties with people I have known before. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Commodore Vasan. It is now an honor and privilege to invite Vice Admiral Adir Arora sir to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, Admiral. Floor is all yours.
Thank you, Sir Balasubramanian. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the complete hydrographic community and the mariners at large for the World Hydrographic Day today. And it's a singular honor for me to be here and to express my thoughts on what and where we stand today in the realm of hydrography. Commodore Vasan, DG Chennai Center for China Studies, Commodore Vijay Garg, the Secretary. At the outset, I would like to thank the Chennai Center for China Studies for inviting me as the key speaker to share my thoughts on hydrography and strategic future. It is indeed an honor to reach out to such a large gathering through this medium. Today, we celebrate the International Hydro Day and the International Yoga Day. The way this pandemic affected our lives, people embraced the natural and healthier way of living through yoga. It is the awareness, importance, and benefits that yoga strives for which makes it more endearing. Yoga, in the larger sense, when applied to communities and society, offers a path for sustainable living. This year's theme for the International Day of Yoga is Yoga for Humanity. World Hydrography Day, as I said earlier, is also celebrated today. We strive to raise awareness about hydrography and how it plays a role in improved knowledge of seas and oceans. The International Hydrographic Day came up on the 2005 idea, which was forwarded to the United Nations. They accepted it, and considering the contribution the International Hydrographic Organization has been making to the world, this day was formulated finally in 2005. This year's theme is Hydrography Contributing to the United Nations Ocean Decade. If we look closely at the recent adoption of both events, it is evident that the world was unaware of the benefits of yoga and hydrography a few decades back. I don't know whether it is coincidental, but it is most apt as both yoga and hydrography seek to enhance the health of each domain. For the benefit of wider audience in this webinar, let me begin with the official definition of hydrography. I quote, hydrography is a branch of applied science which deals with the measurement and description of physical features of oceans, seas, coastal areas, lakes and rivers, as well as the prediction of the change over time, for the primary purpose of safety of navigation and in support of all other marine activities, including economic development, security and defense, scientific research, and environmental protection. Unquote. In addition, to supporting safe and efficient navigation of ships, hydrography underpins almost every other activity associated with it. In layman terms, hydro, that is water, and graphy means the science beneath it. Hydrographers are always on a fact-finding mission, else no sea route would have been established till date. Without the knowledge and information on hydrography, a ship that sails from, say, Rotterdam can never navigate safely across the seas, the oceans, the canals, the rivers, gulfs, straits to reach its destination, say Mumbai, covering a distance of more than 7,000 nautical miles. Let me share a few interesting facts, which we all know about the ocean, but to be seen from a different perspective. About 71% of the Earth is covered by world ocean. It is irony that today we know more about the surface of Mercury, Venus, Mars, and several planets rather than the seabed topography of the Earth. Earth's landmass covers 29% of its surface, and widely available maps of the surface show features down to a size of 30 meters or less. This stands in stark contrast to the ocean floor, which covers the remaining portion of the Earth's surface, and as per the International Hydrographic Organization's report of 2021, only about 20% of the ocean has been systematically surveyed using modern survey techniques. Isn't this interesting that the world hydrographers have been at it for so many years but have only reached this stage? The reason would be explained later. Now, despite this onerous task of mapping the seabed year in and year out, which is continuously in progress, the hydrographers are faced with contingencies that also demand their urgent deployment. In the next few minutes, I will illustrate this with a few examples. On a Saturday morning on 7th August 2010 at 9:37, MV Khalija and MSC Chitra collided off the Mumbai coast. This incident led to shutting down of port operations of two major busiest seaports, namely JNPT and Mumbai Port Trust. Apart from an economic impact, the largest threat was to the safety of navigation due to adrift and sunken containers carrying hazardous substances. The naval hydrographers called upon to locate containers and identify a channel for safe navigation. The next few days, the hydrographers toiled tirelessly in monsoon seas, scanned the seabed, identified the location of the containers, and prepared a safe route for restoring port operations. Imagine the economic loss if it had been prolonged. The next incident that caught the world by surprise and continues to remain a mystery is the ill-fated Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, also known as the MH370, that disappeared on 8th March 2014 while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The search for this missing airplane became the most expensive in the aviation history, which focused initially on the South China Sea, later moved to the Andaman Sea, which was later shifted to the southern Indian Ocean. They mapped an area of 120,000 square kilometers in 3 years. I would like to bring this to the attention of the audience later, but do remember this figure. And still, after these many years, could not locate the wreckage of the ill-fated aircraft. Considering the dimensions of operations and the number of ships that were put, and the equipment that was employed in comparison with search operations on land, one can appreciate the dynamics and complexity of underwater surveying and mapping. This was indeed a search for a needle in a haystack. The recent Suez Canal incident of March 2021 was a wake-up call. The container ship Ever Given, an unforgettable image that captured global attention, wedged diagonally across the Suez Canal, blocking the waterway for 6 days, disrupting billions of dollars in global trade. It was mentioned in one report that 12% of global trade movement, which is approximately 12 billion, 10 billion to 12 billion a day, passes through the Suez Canal. It is learned that the Suez Canal Authority has planned for a 10 billion canal expansion project, that is increasing the depth and the width of the canal, which is the probable answer. Could this have been done earlier? I will later again revisit the implications of canal expansion in terms of hydrography. MV Express Pearl is an unfortunate incident caught fire off the coast of Colombo in May 2021 and sank after being in the same state for 12 days. The ship was carrying more than 1,000 containers with hazardous chemicals. Apart from causing severe environmental damage, it affected the livelihood of over 4,000 local fishing communities. That too during the COVID-19 pandemic. The fishermen were restricted to move out as their nets started getting entangled and the trawlers got stuck with the sunken containers. The Sri Lankan government requested the Indian government to accurately map the containers underwater. INS Sarveksha, a hydrographic ship of the Indian Navy, was sailed to map out these underwater dangers. The ships and the survey boat scanned and mapped the entire seabed to locate the containers underwater. Mind you, each one of them. This paved way for safe operations of merchant marine of Colombo port and brought huge relief to the local fishing community. This clearly demonstrated the strategic utility of hydrographic assets. Let me delve a bit more on versatile nature of hydrographic assets with a few more examples. Komodo Watson has already touched upon the tsunami. I will just add that who can forget the 2004 catastrophe, which devastated nearly all the coastal countries in the Indian Ocean region. I'd like to highlight that the hydrographic ships, 7 out of the 8 of the Indian Navy, in addition to clearing the ports in India and the oil littorals, were able to also provide the rescue and relief. They were also converted to the hospital ships. Although I wouldn't want such disasters to prove the versatile nature of the hydrographic asset, but the ability to deal with both natural and man-made disasters with electricity is the order of the day. And this has been the hallmark of the hydrographic asset of the Indian Navy. Having spoken about the versatile nature of hydrographic assets, let us have a quick glimpse of the Indian scenario now. The territory of coastal states incidentally extends beyond the coastline up to 2,000 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone and further to the continental shelf of 350 nautical miles, which translates to 648 kilometers for economic exploitation of the subsoil and water system. Our mainland covers 3.2 million square kilometers of area against a 2.1 million square kilometer area of inland. Having said this, let us now recollect the area mapped for searching the MH370, 120,000 square kilometers. Yes, this is just 5% of the inland. Now I'm sure you will appreciate that the effort that would be required to discern an object lying on the seafloor, even the size of a Boeing 777, roughly 73 meters in length, 61 meters wingspan, and 21 meters tall, and depicted on a navigation chart. Coming to the economic imperative, having spoken about the need of the ocean, let me throw some light on the imperatives of ocean mapping in trade and commerce. The international shipping is responsible for the carriage around 90% of the world's trade, resulting in exponential increase in maritime traffic. At an average, over 100,000 ships traverse through the Indian Ocean. They operate on what can be called as a marine highway. Isn't this obvious enough to conclude that the world trade is dependent on the ocean and therefore the need to provide up-to-date and accurate navigation charts, which incidentally is the legal document for safety of navigation at sea for waters around India, encompassing majority of the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and North Indian Ocean. The Hydrographic Department of the country does this both in electronic form and the paper form. It is difficult to quantify the full economic benefits which flow from a national hydrographic program, but several studies by ISO member states indicate that the cost to benefit ratio is at least 1:10. For nations with a significant dependence on maritime trade and industry. Few minutes back, I spoke about the Suez Canal expansion program with estimates of around 10 billion. As per the study by the IHO, for more ships, for example, 30 centimeters of depth shown on a chart would allow 2,000 tons of more cargo to be carried. You can convert this into the monetary value and see how much is the effect of this. Thus, the economic benefit of having an up-to-date knowledge of marine environment can be considered. Let me highlight the strategic imperative of hydrography in the near future. Coming to global warming, the world is facing a biggest challenge, or call it a looming threat, is climate change. I mentioned about super cyclones and tsunamis, but the warming of oceans and associated temperature rise has affected the entire globe. The melting ice in Arctic and Antarctic has led to a rising sea level, which may not be visible, but is slowly encroaching on the coastal habitat. The inundation due to flood tide and erosion of coastline has placed considerable stress on the coastal population. The livelihood of thousands who have been living in vulnerable coastal regions have been affected, and that in turn would lead to further migration and displacement of population. The dynamism of change in ocean environment that has direct impact on the way we live on land needs to be studied constantly. Only then can we involve meaningful outcomes to ensure a sustainable future. We are also witnessing a change in the nature of seaborne navigation. The 2D digital technology with EGDIS was introduced in the early 2000s, which was a game changer then. As we navigate through the 20th, 21st century, the IHO document S100, which is the Universal Hydrographic Data Model, is evolving to bring in the 3D version of electronic charts. So it is still some way off, but it will revolutionize the way the things are conducted. Sorry for the slip. Autonomous shipping is another aspect that we need to look at. Popularly known as MAS, that is Maritime Autonomous Surface Shipping, which is a remotely controlled ship without seafarers on board. The operating system of the ship will be able to make decisions and determine action with them. On a lighter note, it is similar to unmanned Tesla car, which uses Google Maps on land, and here it is the electronic navigation chart produced by the hydrographer that would play a pivotal role in assisting the decision support system of the ship. Blue Economy Coordination Committee has been established by NITI Aayog to achieve the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of harnessing the blue economy in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The Chief Hydrographer plays a significant role in this initiative. One critical requirement of blue economy is the marine spatial planning. I would like to cite one example of green energy generating wind farms. With the growing scarcity of land, installing wind farms at sea is a possible option today. However, it can conflict with fishing areas, shipping routes, and interfere with shore-based radar stations. This is just an example to highlight the consultative process required for the marine spatial planning at the national level as well as the regional level. There are therefore complex issues with alignment of shipping lanes, fishing areas, and host of other parameters. Hydrographic offices have thus become the most elaborate databases worthy of being classified as major repositories for marine spatial planning. Underwater cables, pipelines, fishing prohibited areas, oil fields, marine protected areas, marine boundaries, to name a few, are some of the information common to marine spatial planning and the charts used on a daily basis by the marine. The impact of this is going to be phenomenal. Now, let us try to have a view about how do we stitch the globe together, especially the sea. As per the International Hydrographic Organization and the International Oceanographic Commission report, mapping and creating a digital representation of the ocean by 2030 to meet one of the objectives of the United Nations Decade of the Ocean is a tremendous challenge with the current technology and would require nearly 1,000 ship years, or let's say 100 ships for 10 years, and perhaps being a bit too optimistic with 9 years at hand, specifically considering that 50% of the world oceans is deeper than 3,200 meters and parts are permanently ice covered. We are slowly seeing a shift of how to go about it, and we have to be very, very serious about it. The future we need to chart is to operate from pole to pole and look east as per our national vision. This would be achieved through robust inter and intra-regional cooperation and several capacity building initiatives through the security and growth for all in the region, Sagar, and the Sagarmala project. The aim is to expand our footprint, stitching the world together seamlessly across the oceans, ensuring environmental, social, and governance as a model. In the end, I would like to summarize that hydrography underpins marine spatial planning and decision making, safety of navigation, and provides a scientific basis for models of tsunami inundation and storm surges, regional assessment of future sea level rise, understanding marine ecosystems and habitat, and much more. The more data we acquire about the details of the seabed shape, the more we recognize that the ocean and its flow are more complex than ever thought of. Detailed knowledge about bathymetry and seabed shape are fundamental prerequisites for attaining an improved understanding of many of these subsea dynamic processes. And the hydrographers will continue to contribute in this pursuit. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much, sir, for the comprehensive and insightful keynote address. It is now our privilege and honor to welcome Rear Admiral K. Nair, NM, to deliver the special address, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Balasubramaniam. Thank you very much. And greetings to everybody, to all viewers on the occasion of the World Hydrographic Day. Much of what I had to say is covered by Bala, Commodore Vasan, and by Chief Hydrographer. Albeit, I will still bring out certain issues, though there would be some repetition, just for the flow of the talk. So bear with me if there is some repetition. Commodore Vasan, sir, Commodore Garg, all members of the C3S, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interact with you all. It's wonderful to see and talk about something that you have been doing all this while. Just before tsunami, I had the opportunity to interact at the Maritime History Society at Mumbai, and post tsunami, I'm here with you all. It's nice to be with the naval fraternity in whatever form it is. So I wanted to begin with the definition which Admiral Adir Arora has already said, so I'll not delve into it. But I will first start with the mandate. Essentially, what is the mandate for hydrography in the international arena as well as in the national arena? Now, that's how this day, 21st June, has come, because this is the day when the International Hydrographic Bureau was set up with an initial membership of about 18 member states. And this body was so formed because of the importance and the global dimension that hydrography imposed. Today, International Hydrographic Organization, which has come out of this, has 98 member states. Interestingly, the formation of International Maritime Organization, which is on 17th March 58, essentially for regulating shipping, came about after 37 years. It just goes to say the importance of hydrography and its prerequisite before we even talk of shipping. So these are the two, this is the start of this day. Now we're going on to the main document of IMO, which is SOLAS, the safety of life at sea, is one of the important regulation or one of the important convention of IMO, and in which chapter 5 deals with navigation safety. In 2002, July, it's pretty late, July 2002, Regulation 9 was brought about, which essentially talked about the mandate for providing of hydrographic services by the coastal states. Now, hydrographic services, what exactly does it mean? It would you will get a better idea of it as I go through the basic Regulation 9 of this. It basically says contracting governments undertake to arrange for collection and compilation of hydrographic data and publication, dissemination, and keeping up to date. In particular, contracting governments undertake to cooperate in carrying out, as far as possible, nautical and hydrographic services in the aid of navigation, as under to ensure hydrographic surveys are carried out as far as possible adequate to the requirements of safe navigation, to prepare and issue nautical charts and publications and other publications like sailing directions, list of lights, tide tables, where applicable, satisfying the needs of navigation, to promulgate notices to mariners and other nautical charts and publications so that all these charts and publications are kept up to date, and to provide for data management arrangements to support all these. So that in brief said what is the hydrographic services expected. Sorry, I'll just. Now, all these activities have to be done keeping in tune with the standards and the uniformity that has been laid down through the various conventions and regulations of IMO and IHL. They have to undertake greatest possible uniformity in charts, nautical publications, and take into account, where possible, relevant international resolutions and recommendations. Contracting governments undertake to coordinate their activities to the greatest possible degree in order to ensure hydrography and nautical information is available in a worldwide scale, timely, reliably, and in an unambiguous manner. The other regulation, which was even more, which preceded all these things and was there much before, was the issue of navigation warnings, and for which India is the coordinator 8. That will be talking more into it. So now back to our national regulations which govern hydrography. We have the regulations of the Indian Navy, which clearly gives the chief hydrographer the mandate to carry out such tasks in support of navigation, as also in support of defense service. And then we have the Government of India Allocation of Vessels Rules 1961, as amended from time to time, which clearly says the Ministry of Defense is required and is responsible for undertaking hydrographic surveys and issuing nautical charts and publications. So these are the basic mandates under which our hydrographic department works. Going to the importance of hydrography. Well, it's been in numerous ways. Admiral Adir Arora has brought about the importance, but we'll go take step-by-step approach. First and foremost is for the efficient, safe maritime transport control. About 80% of the trade is through sea, and therefore shipping plays a very important role. And to see that shipping is safe and efficient, we need hydrographic services. It goes without doubt that without hydrographic services, the shipping will never be very safe. It will never be efficient, and it will take more time, and it will never be that very cost-effective as it is today. With more and more accurate charts and publications, the voyages become shorter, and also the loading of the ships can go to a higher degree than what was done earlier. Second issue is on the coastal zone management and development. Figures suggest that about 30% of the human habitat is in the coastal area. Coastal area from its coastline to about, say, 50 to 100 kilometers. Now, 30% or 40%, I'm stand corrected, 30 to 40% is too large a figure, and on a land which is just 1/3 of the entire globe. And it creates a lot of stress on this coastal zone area. And therefore, for its protection and for an effective management of these areas, you need hydrography, without doubt. It impinges every activity along the coast, be it developing new ports, sustaining the old ones, dredging operations, maintenance of minimum depths, and improvements of the channels, monitoring and control of coastal erosion, land reclamation, establishment, monitoring of dumping grounds and industrial waste, extracts of mineral deposits, aquaculture activities, transportation, public works, so on and so forth. List is endless. So it plays a very big role in the coastal zone management and development. So hydrography, as hydrographers, we don't directly are not involved. The data from the archives from this hydrographic office is used extensively for such activities. Then came United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, and got entered into force in 1984. And that laid down a large gambit of maritime boundaries that you could claim: territorial sea, contiguous zones, the continental shelf, and even beyond the continental shelf, for which very accurate surveys are required so that you can claim an area as much as 350 nautical miles. And in case of Bay of Bengal, even more. There are some special clauses which govern states that are in the southern Bay of Bengal. Don't want to dwell deep into it, but there are clauses where you can go beyond this. So all this depends on hydrographic information. And the exploration and exploitation of these resources, again, calls for hydrography. The fisheries, simple fisheries, they also depend on a little bit of hydrographic data from us. In the developed countries, they do have special fisheries charts which indicates where the fishing zones are and other underwater dangers in those fishing zones, so that their nets don't get caught up. So fisheries and all activities along the coast draw the support from this hydrographic data, from the hydrographic offices. Environmental protection and management. Chief Hydrographer just mentioned about a few of the accidents and incidents that took place, and how the hydrographic services came to the rescue and saved millions of dollars, not just for the stakeholders, but for humanity as such. So it plays a very big role in environmental protection and management. The other aspect is marine science. Marine science, the entire gambit of marine research draws much of its data from the databases maintained at the hydrographic offices. And marine scientific data, there's a close cooperation with many of our organizations like the National Institute of Oceanography, Indian National Center for Ocean Information System, wherein they use bulk of our data for their own studies and research. Coming next is the natural, the prolongation of all these databases would come to the talk of national spatial data information infrastructures. And when you talk of national spatial data infrastructures, one important component of it is the marine component. And the backbone of any marine GIS is hydrography. It's the hydrographers will provide this data, which becomes the backbone for any marine GIS. So the archived data at NHO Dehradun is one of the main marine nodes of our own national spatial data infrastructure, which is already in place. Admiral has also brought about the various issues related to maritime boundary delimitation. Maritime boundary delineation. UNCLOS has given us opportunities to claim well beyond a continental exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles, deep into a continental shelf. And all these aspects of this are mentioned in the UNCLOS 1962, and it is our hydrographers who lay claim for these. And it is the data from our hydrographic offices which are extensively used for this. Hydrography and maritime defense need no special emphasis. Just because the Indian Hydrographic Department is under the Indian Navy, by itself gives you an impression that there is a lot for marine defense to draw from hydrographic information. Be it for submarine warfare, be it for amphibious warfare in form of grease gradient surveys, submarine warfare in terms of deep diving area charts, deep diving submarine bottoming charts, other special charts for submarine. And the other important aspect of this whole thing is that of late we have now gone into multi-beam surveys. Multi-beam surveys would require getting the sound velocity profile, both spatial and temporal, so that you can apply these to get your beam forming correctly and accurately done for multi-beam surveys. Now these data, the sound velocity profile data, spatially and temporally available in the hydrographic offices. These can be used extensively for predicting the sound velocity profile at any point at any given time. And this will be of great importance to the ASW ships as also for the submarines. And not just this, there is very much more that can be drawn out of our database for marine defense. And also the hydrographic office undertakes special surveys for defense. Tourism. That it provides for tourism to flourish and also for recreation boating. As of today, a lot of recreation boating takes place. A visit to Kochi Harbour would give you the amount of boats, small boats that come and visit the port, maybe for a week or two. And they all require hydrographic information for the safe conduct of their passage. Tourism. When it comes to tourism, I'd like to bring about a small little incident which took place just to indicate how important hydrographic data is for tourism, marine tourism. The Caribbean cruise liners almost doubled up their fares when their operating costs went up because the insurance companies hiked up the insurance premium. This was done when the insurance companies got the information that the waters around some of the Caribbean islands were not too well surveyed to modern standards. So there you are. Fare went up. The number of people visiting these islands went down. It affected the tourism industry there. And all why? Because these areas were not adequately surveyed. And if it was surveyed, you can imagine, now it's back to roads. Everybody is happy. There is enough tourism in Caribbean islands because hydrography is complete there and there are agencies looking after it. The premiums have come down and it's passed on to the benefits for the clients and therefore everybody benefits. Just to give you a small little example. Cost to benefit ratios, like Admiral, our chief hydrographer had mentioned, very many studies have been carried out, some by the Canadian authorities, some by the hydrographers at Australia, some by US. And what comes out very clearly from all these things is that the cost to benefit ratio of having hydrographic services with you is better than 1:10. That is what some of the books say, some of the studies say. So it's quite a huge plus to have hydrographic services in your gambit, and the nation only stands to gain by having hydrographic services. I'm out of the hydrographic department, but I would wish to add just to say what are the assets. I'll just give in brief what are the assets, what does it mean, and also give you in brief what the whole process is from ping to chart, so that you can appreciate what hydrographers do and what hydrography means. When you talk of our assets, first and the foremost comes the National Hydrographic Office, the apex office from which everything is coordinated. And it's one of the front-running hydrographic offices of the world. We have a National Institute of Hydrography, where two of their programs, the long hydrographic course and the basic hydrographic course, have been recognized by the IHOFIG ICA International Board on Standards for Training in Hydrography. We have a chart depots which essentially caters for the Navy, but also extensive support to other chart depots from which the mariners generally source their produce. And then the afloat assets like the survey ships and one small catamaran hulled survey ship. All these ships are adequately, they got the best of the modern surveying equipments. The electronic position fixing system, both terrestrial based and the satellite based, echo sounders, both single beam and multi beam, automated data logging processing system, which logs the whole thing and processes it, the acoustic Doppler current profilers, current meters, side scan sonars, sub-bottom profilers, few land surveying equipments and portable survey instruments. We also have on board the catamaran hulled survey ship, autonomous underwater vehicles for carrying out remote operations. So there you have the assets of our hydrographic department, and all our hydrographic ships are fitted out for local naval defense role too, and also are constructed in such a way that they can undergo a rapid conversion to hospital ships when necessary. I'll now undergo, I'll just briefly just gen you up on the whole process of a ping. What would be a ping to get the sounding right up to the chart and the publications. You invariably have a roll-on plan in the hydrographic offices. In all hydrographic offices, they have their roll-on plan where they have an annual plan as to which areas needs updation, where need to be surveyed and updated. And along with this, there are inputs from the various maritime agencies like the port organizations, other state maritime boards. All these inputs come in, and you have a hydrographic survey committee meeting chaired by invariably the joint secretary ports, and the joint chief hydrographer attends these meetings, where the complete annual tasking is culled. And after the annual tasking is decided, the hydrographic offices adds on whatever is the defense survey requirements that are required, and comes up with the annual program for each of the hydrographic ships. And some of the surveys are also undertaken by the hydrographic survey units. Then these tasks are undertaken by ships. They do detailed plannings, they coordinate with the local authorities and gets adequate information and undertake the hydrographic surveys. And it's a long process, invariably there is a recce carried out, an aerial recce carried out to see where you can put up your tide observation stations, where you can put up your electronic position fixing systems. By the time the ship goes and anchors, the helo and the boats are out to set up these camps for the tide and for the position fixing systems. And the very next day, sounding operations begin, both with the ships as well as with the small survey parties are let out in into the land, where they delineate the coastline and pick up the important conspicuous objects as viewed from sea. Pick up and fix all these things, give a detailed description, so that they are now available in the digital form with all its attributes into a database. After collecting all this data, there is an onboard QA/QC before the submission is done, where a detailed analysis is undertaken for its QA/QC's quality checks and put into a digital form and sent to the hydrographic office. At the hydrographic office, a complete QA/QC is undertaken before these data is incorporated or imported into the hydrographic production database. So you can see how the whole process goes till it goes into a production database. There's complete, you could call it Six Sigma or whatever, but there is a complete checks and balances before it goes. Now into the database, today we are all talking of electronic charts and what have you. What we have in a hydrographic office is a database of all these informations. So the International Hydrographic Office has come up with, International Hydrographic Organization come up with a standard for this digital data as to how they should be, how it should be coded, what are the attributes to be added, what are the mandatory attributes to, signify a particular object, what are the ancillary attributes that are required to further amplify. So this is collected and put in these forms For instance, you would have a landmark. It would have a code. Now this code will say it is a landmark. Then the attribute will come, this landmark is a lighthouse. That is one of the attributes. Then there is a description of the lighthouse. It has got 3 bands. It has got red, white, red color. That is another attribute. The sector of the lights. What is the characteristics of the light? That is the next attribute. So on and so forth. So all these attributes with its positions are in our database. And from this database comes out the nautical charts, ENCs, which are now called ENCs, electronic navigation charts, and various other publications as required for safe navigation. The same data is readily available for any marine application in our nation. It's a marine node for our national spatial data infrastructure. So you can see how it is all put and how this process from print to chart is finally feeding the marine node of our national spatial data infrastructure. I know I'm going a little more, but I would want to talk a little more about some of the milestones of our hydrographic department. That itself would give you some bit of where we are and what is the potential, and of what strategic utility it can be put to use. We started in 1947 when we got our independence as a Marine Survey of India under the survey in charge. It soon became the National Naval Hydrographic Office under the Chief Hydrographer in 54. 56, we became the member of International Hydrographic Organization. 61, our training setup at Kochi was formed. And the first, till this time, till the early 60s, we had hand-me-down ships of the Navy which were to be decommissioned, which was used for hydrographic survey after some small little modification. 1964, INS Darshak was commissioned, and this, incidentally, was the first hydrographic survey vessel which was constructed. And it was the first air-conditioned ships in those days. And it was air-conditioned not for the human cause, but for the equipments that were in. Notwithstanding, we had soon came 65 when Chief Hydrographer became the Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India in tune with the national responsibility that he holds. And 72 and 77, very important years, we had Commodore D.C. Kapoor, erstwhile hydrographer, was elected as a director at International Hydrographic Organization. 72 he was elected, 77 he was re-elected. Now, I'm just moving away from the top, just to tell you that International Hydrographic Organization has 3 directors, out of which one of them becomes the president. Right. These 3 directors and or the president are elected. It is an election process where all the member states, they have vote shares depending on the tonnage. It's too complicated. I'm not going too much into it. But the MEA plays a very important role of late. Earlier, it was just the hydrographers who mattered. So you would find, since we were one of the leading hydrographers, our officers took over these posts as directors. Soon, much later, in the 80s, early 80s, our Chief Hydrographer, erstwhile Chief Rear Admiral Fraser, was elected as the president of the International Hydrographic Organization. So sometimes you might ask me, why is it not happening off late? Why is it not there? It's not there because we have not, India together as a team with MEA on board has not moved in for these elections. Now it's all geopolitical. Everybody wants to have their stake. Earlier it was just the hydrographers, who used to be. It is the hydrographers still who stand for election. But the election process has got other geopolitical connotations. So we need support of the MEA and all these things. That's another issue. When we had the National Hydrographic School being named as National Hydrographic School, and later to the National Institute of Hydrography. Very surprisingly, you would be surprised to know that in the early 80s, we got a UNDP aid for our Hydrographic Institute to the tune of 22.33 lakhs. It was very, very substantial in early 80s. 22 having an aid of 22.33 lakhs UNDP aid, and this is the first time a 4G setup has got this kind of an aid. Never in the world has UNDP aid ever reached any Navy or for that matter any defense organization. But we were the first to get this. That did give it a flip. And soon with all that came the award of a category A certification for a long hydrographic course. And ATs also came in with induction of modern hydrographic surveying equipment, and the semi-automated chart process system started. And all these things with the golden era of ATs really brought us up to the forefront to make our office one of the forefronters, running offices in the world. And the icing of the cake, 1982, I think, Admiral Fraser was elected as the president of the International Hydrographic Organization. We moved on from there, the induction of ships came about, production of ENC started in the turn of the century, and the hydrographic department kept pace with the Navy's blue water capability, and the introduction of the hydrographic production database was another, watershed mark in the, in this timeline. And there we go. We moved from strength to strength to be a department worth its merit, worth its standing, contributing not just to maritime safety, but to national safety. So I'd like to sum it up by just saying that National Hydrographic Office, with long traditions in hydrography and an excellent track record, is one of the front-running hydrographic offices of the world. The department, with its expertise, wherewithal, is doing a yeoman service to the marine community across the globe, whilst aiding in nation building and being an enabler for blue economy. It's just waiting to be further exploited in its naval diplomacy role. There's a lot of strategic importance when it's in this particular sphere, which is yet to be tapped. It is happening, but there's yet many more to go. So with these few words, I'd like to end my talk. And once again, thank Chennai Center for China Studies for giving me this opportunity to interact with you all wonderful people. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Rear Admiral K.M. Nair. Thank you, sir, for helping us understand the advances in hydrography. We now really understand the significance this domain holds in India's strategic profile. We'll now be taking questions from the chat box. My colleague, Ms. Sapna, will handle the questions. She'll be taking the questions from the chat box.
Thank you, sir. So I'll be reading out each question from the chat box. The first question is from Admiral Srinivasan. How much % of Indian coastal waters have been covered so far under 3D hydrographic surveys? And how much % of Indian Navy's hydrography department collected data has been given to outside agencies towards offshore development in India? The Chief Hydrographer of India.
You're not audible. There is an echo. There is an echo. I'm not able to discern you.
Yes,
please request everybody else to mute themselves. I think somebody is not muted, so there are reverberations. Please ask everybody to mute themselves and then read out the question.
So the question is, how much % of Indian coastal waters have been covered so far under 3D hydrographic surveys? And how much of our Indian Navy collected data have been given to outside agencies towards offshore development in India?
Ma'am, thank you for the question. When it comes to the hydrographic surveying is always done in a 3-dimensional. It is how you portray it on a chart. It is how you view it. So the hydrographic survey is already being done in a 3-dimensional, not being done in a 2-dimensional mode. Coming to how much data has gone to the other agencies, the electronic navigation charts are available to the complete maritime mariners. So whatever they want, it is already available there. It is available to the mariners. At a certain costing, obviously, it goes back to the exchequer, but it is already available. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Balasubramanian. What has been the contribution of Indian hydrographers from the Indian Navy in the Arctic?
Antarctic.
Sorry, in the Antarctic.
Since the Indian Navy does not have any specific assets in the Antarctic, and Antarctic is the world scientific community at large, we take the assistance of Ministry of Earth Sciences to send our personnel to survey the areas which are located closer to our station. So this has been done from the last, I think around 2023 or 24 expedition. And you'll appreciate that with the ice blocks and the ice floors and the icebergs, it is extremely difficult to navigate in that area. So it's that opportunity of when the ice breaks and the area which is available, you can undertake a survey. We have been at it for so many years, and you'd be glad to know that considerable data has been acquired by us, which we continue to process, and which would be of immense knowledge to the mariners when they reach out towards that.
Thank you, sir. From Commodore R.S. Watson, a question. Chief Hydrographer, you may kindly let us know about the training of our survey branch officers and sailors' maritime neighbors. How much of assistance is actually given in chart preparation of neighboring countries, including electronic charts?
We have to keep the vision of a nation to look after our near neighbors and neighbors, and also Sagar, plus the national initiatives of Sagar Mala. Coming to the near neighbors and neighbors, a lot of nations are having a memorandum of understanding and implementing arrangement with India, in which they seek our assistance to undertake either the surveys of their waters or to train the people, which will build the capacity for them to take on the role themselves. So India obviously reaches out in case there is any assistance required by any of the coastal states. With regard to what all tasks has been done, these are specific to the requests that come to us. So offhand, we can say at an average, there are, we can say at least 1 or 2 ships are deployed specifically on the request by any host country. But this is also based on the memorandum of understanding that the government of India has with those countries.
Thank you, sir. The last question is from R.S. Watson. This question is to Rear Admiral N.M. Nair. How far have you progressed in moving away from DGPS to our own navigation systems? Sir, you may do it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, okay. We started with DGPS. When we started with DGPS, we earlier went by our own DGPS, terrestrial based. We'd like to link it to with our geodetic network. Then came the ENCs, which were to be on WGS-84, which is the worldwide geoid WGS-84. When it came to that, it was very easy for us to piggyback on any of the service providers. We provided these the DGPS component of it. There were very many across the globe, and soon came our own this thing. And when I left, we just had undertaken few checks with the Gagan, and we found that it met to a large extent. And it was in the embryo stage, just the formative stage, when we carried these data. And I'm sure by now we must be extensively using Gagan for our DGPS purposes. Of course, it's got its own limitation vis-a-vis the Indian area. If we have to go and survey outside this area, we will have to use other service providers. I'm sure Chief Hydro would agree to it, because the current situation is only where is known to him.
Thank you, sir.
I completely endorse what Admiral Nair has mentioned. Yes, the areas which may be beyond the footprint of the Indian GPS, we may need, obviously, fine compound the other systems for getting the same precise position.
Thank you, sir. I thank our distinguished speakers for patiently taking all the questions from the chat box. I now request Commodore Vijesh Garg, Executive Director, Chennai Center for China Studies, to conduct the proceedings and to conclude. Over to you, Commodore Vijesh.
Thank you, Bala. Before I put the concluding remarks, may I request Admiral Vasan to say a few words? Being a hydrographic day, may I, sir?
You want me to speak?
Yes, sir. Today, your day, sir. You are the
No,
eldest in the
I think I contributed enough. I have nothing to say except to say that it's high time the Navy moved on in hydrography to greater technologies, methods, and procedures, and also aim at dissemination of information to the other agencies for national development. That's all I say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, Admiral Arora, Admiral Nair, Admiral Vasan, all the hydrographers from NHO Dehradun, NIH Goa, distinguished members of C3S, our interns, ladies and gentlemen. I wish everybody today first the World Hydrographic Day, and there's no way better than to celebrate with them. As they say, be a team with them. That's the best way you can celebrate somebody's birthday. So we are with you. Today's discussion was aimed at two aspects. One was, I regret my own self in 1985 when I joined a survey ship from watchkeeping, and Admiral Vasan was commanding Nirdeshak and I was a Sandhayak. And I left, of course, for a different branch. But I recollect, after my experience in Navy in various talks, that this is one area which people are not aware of. When we talk of blue economy, we talk of submarine warfare, which came out Admiral Nair's talk, or anti-submarine warfare. Unless this branch has made the so-called Google map for you of underwater, you can do nothing or you cannot do efficiently. I will put it that way. Being an ASW officer, if you do not have a sound profile or sanity area of that area and the depth in the profile, neither you can make a right plan, nor you can make a counter plan. That's just gist of it. Today's talk also brought out to our interns to knowledge. When you talk of Sagarmala project, you talk of blue economy, you talk of deep sea mining, we talk of navigation, freedom of navigation, which is a rule-based order. This is the branch which is directly connected with it. It is not the war-fighting ships. This is the basics you understand. That's why we brought this talk today for everybody today. Whether it is when we say international boundary line, whether it is Bangladesh, whether it is Sir Creek in Pakistan, or tomorrow is Sri Lanka, it is the hydrographer who are there mediating for us, who knows inside, who knows much more than anybody else, including the UNCLOS issues. And this goes in South China Sea, which Commodore Vasan mentioned at the beginning of the arbitration. Whole issue is on UNCLOS, Commodore Nair mentions SOLAS, or you talk of zones, economic zones, your boundaries, all based on hydrography and beyond that. So these are very important facets of naval operations which work for the war-fighting ships or aircraft for that matter. Other aspect which I came in beautifully here, that this branch has got a database we talk of strategic planning. I will just quote you one incident in short. At times, you are quoted India as neglecting the strategic importance of Andaman. Often you hear this statement. I always deny it. Why I say this? Survey ships are the first one when a maritime nation think of a strategic importance of a place. You got to know what is the water, depth, area, contours, the coastline, which Commodore Nair and Chief Hydrographer mentioned. You got to know about it. And this starts, I know my experience in 1985 when survey ship actually charted the whole Andaman, the Pulo Milo Island, the Campbell, which we talk today. They were doing in 1985 and before that. So that is the strategic importance is seen in maritime terms of a place. Admiral Arora mentioned briefly to us that there are MOUs, various countries for whom, which are strategic partners of us in long term, and we do survey for them. We do training for them. Those areas are strategic in long planning. Of course, we won't be quoting these talks here, but hydrographic branch is the one, is a strategic partnership and looking ahead of the war fighting or any other things, any alliance comes later on. On the lighter side, this is the branch which earns lots of foreign money for the government of India, which is not mentioned here. Of course, they don't get a share of that like Coast Guard, but they do a silent service, which is in terms of a strategic partnership, instead of strategic relations, and of course, the foreign currency comes to us in a big way. And when I mentioned very few occasions within India, the port, the navigational safety, but this is one of the major tasks which they are doing it. And last but not the least, again, the lighter terms. Now we got a lot of survey ships are coming up. We just heard the latest one. We just, Vice Chief had come to launch the plate. We discussed that day. Remember, these are the most modern ships. May not be in terms of missiles and the radars, but in terms of equipment which they need, they are the most modern ships. You name the facility, they have with them, and it's increasing day by day. If you visit to Dehradun, I had a chance to visit to Dehradun, and Admiral Nair mentioned the whole process. And when you see the process of chart making and the professionals there, I don't think very many will appreciate what precise goes to a, not even a millimeter, maybe dash of that, the depth is that accurate plotting. The whole process is very, very dedicated process. So much came to know today. All of you learned about it. What remains for me is to thank the Chief Hydrographer, Admiral Nair, to come with us, join this program, and all the hydrographers who are here today, Admiral Vasan, Commodore Ashoka, whom I know, Commodore Palsy, my own undertaking. So very emotional for me to join them today. But more was to learn about this branch in much better way. What is branch about? What is how they do about the job, and what is the importance of this branch? I thank you, all of you, for joining us all the way from Delhi and Cochin, wherever you are. I'd like to thank our distinguished members who have joined us, our returns. Of course, my Director General Commodore Vasan, though he's traveling to Mangalore for a lecture, but he joined us from there. Thank you so much, sir. Never leaving me alone. I'd like to thank Bala and Sapna for coordinating the all actions for this webinar on the day, on the yoga day, and of course, Admiral said yoga day and the hydrographic day together, and they coordinate the whole events in a timely manner. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Jai Hind.
It's also the World Music Day, I'm told.
So play music after this.
As long as somebody is not facing the music, it's okay. Thank you, Admiral. Arora and Admiral Nair and Admiral Vasan for joining us. It's your day.
Thank you.
But it's great to celebrate it together with you by learning more about the branch and their new thrust. Thank you also, Admiral Murali, for joining.
Thank you, Murali sir.
Thank you so much.
Jai Hind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.